Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagarisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Tabakara Kamala Varenaka Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Tavakara Kamala Varenaka Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavandrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society, Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society, Jayate.
Om Harihi. Om. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Satsangha live stream of the International Sanatana Dharma Society, brought to you live from our temple headquarters here in Omaha, Nebraska, USA. And what we're going to be doing today is something quite special. If someone wouldn't mind, if someone can please pass me one of the books that we have offered on our altar. Thank you. I'm very happy to announce that we have released our latest book, which is called Radical Universalism, Are All Religions the Same? This book is now available for purchase on Amazon, and we're going to be celebrating this book today and the release of this book. The book was released just a few days ago. It became available for purchase. And again, during the live stream today, we will be focusing on talking about the book itself. Before we do that, however, just a few very, very quick things. First of all, if you could please help us by sharing the link to this live stream right now. This live stream will go on for at least an hour from now. So if you could please share the link on any and all of your social media, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere that you are, Gab, etc. That would be very, very helpful to us because we want as many people to be watching as possible today. The second thing that I want to say is that, again, we are in the midst of our 2023 year-end fundraising campaign. We're trying to raise funds for the International Sanatana Dharma Society, the nonprofit 501c3 IRS-recognized religious movement, spiritual movement that is presenting this live stream to you, and that is quite literally on the cutting edge of restoring Dharma to our world. If you could please follow the link, which I know has been put in the chat of this video several times, and on top of that, when this video is available as a recording as well, it will be in the comments as well. Please feel free to follow that link, and if you can donate anything this year toward the ISDS, it can be $5, it can be $5 million, anything in between. Please do so as soon as you can. That would be tremendously helpful to us. With that, Radical Universalism. This is a term that I coined, to my knowledge. It didn't exist previous to me. And I first coined this, I don't even know when. It was probably in the 90s, probably the mid-90s when I was a college student. And what Radical Universalism is this claim that is made now. It's an omnipresent claim, sadly. 100 years ago, it wasn't. 500 years ago, the claim did not exist in any way, shape, or form in any philosophy, religion, theology, ideology upon the face of the earth. And that is the very simple, indeed simplistic claim that all religions are the same. Now, of course, again, this has become an idea that's become very prevalent. This is due to the fact that people are simply not philosophical today, not in any real sense. A fortune cookie sense, New Age sense, etc. A put a bumper sticker on your car sense, a pass a meme around Facebook sort of sense. But real philosophy, i.e. rigid logic, syllogism, propositional analysis, truly trying to understand what is the nature of truth using what God has given us in the form of wisdom, that's something that's not found as much anymore. And what we've seen is that as sadly philosophy itself has slowly died over the course of the last several hundred years, this notion came about. And really, in the form in which I speak about it in the book, this notion that all religions are the same is 200 years old. 200 years old, almost to the year actually, give or take, 5 years, something like that. And indeed, sadly, this notion became prevalent most especially in what we must call Hinduism. And again, about 200 years ago. And previous to roughly 200 years ago, this idea that all paths lead to the same thing, doesn't matter what your actual goal is, your stated goal in spirituality, it doesn't matter what it is that you practice, that you do, that you believe, doesn't matter what ethical principles you follow or don't follow, quite literally it doesn't matter what you do or say, we all end up in the same place anyway. This idea did not exist in what is called properly Sanatana Dharma or the Vedic tradition previous to the very early 19th century. And I wrote a 290-page book outlining very clearly, without fluff, very clearly how this is the case. I go into the history of this idea that all religions are the same. I tell you the names of the individuals who created it. I tell you what their motivations were. I quote from their own writings, from their own speeches, etc., as far as what was their actual motivation in creating this false doctrine, this anti-philosophical idea, etc. And that's what the book is. Now, let me talk a little bit about the history of the book, because it is a book that made history, actually. This, I should say, is really the dramatically updated second edition. This started off as a very long philosophical, truly philosophical essay. When I say philosophical, I'm saying there, I did quite literally propositional analysis and very long syllogisms. This was a truly philosophical work that I first wrote approximately 2002 or 2003, something like that. And this was the early history of the internet. It started off as an article, which I submitted to one website, but then it just caught on like wildfire. And I guesstimated by 2004, just kind of looking around the internet back then, that it was on at least 100 websites, something like that. Then finally, in 2007, I was asked by Voice of India, which is a wonderful publishing company in India. They asked if they could publish it in book form. I expanded it slightly, not by much, maybe another 10, 15, 20 pages, something like that. And it first came out as a book in 2007, published in India. Very difficult to find in America, but at one time it was stocked on, it was certainly available through Amazon.com. Even that came to an end. I'm not sure how long ago, but it came to the point where the book was almost impossible to find. But let me tell you, the guesstimate between all the websites and all the counters that were there, in addition to the publisher telling me how many of the books were sold, Radical Universalism was read by at least 1 million people, minimally. And that was as of 10 years ago, something like that. I stopped counting a long time ago, actually. So indeed, the original edition made a tremendous impact, to the point where I myself began to see that some of the more traditional Hindu leaders throughout the world began to speak in terms of radical universalism. In other words, they were parroting what I said, which made me very happy. The fact that they repeated what I said, they didn't give me attribution in any way, I don't care, that's fine. They were finally stating the truth. And it was obvious they were getting this truth from my book, Radical Universalism, because they were practically paraphrasing what I wrote. And as a result, indeed, I saw myself that this began to have a tremendous impact, that Hindu leaders, real Hindu leaders, again, traditionalist Hindu leaders, themselves began to not only understand, but vehemently agree with the fact that Sanatana Dharma never taught this false doctrine of radical universalism, that all religions are the same. Well, now again, it's 2023, and I had the inspiration to release the book again. Because again, it got to the point where it was no longer available for purchase, to the point where I know the few copies that were available, people treasured them like gold. And they ended up being worth a lot of money, etc., because it was out of print. Well, we decided it was time now for the ISDS to create our own published edition of this book. But more than that, I became personally inspired to dramatically increase the size of the book. Now again, the book itself, the first edition, I forget how many pages it was small. It was maybe 75 pages. Again, it was an expansion of an essay. So it was approximately 75 pages, give or take, 5 pages. This new edition has an additional 200 pages, at least. Again, I kind of lost count. It's 290 pages now. And the reason why I expanded it is indeed because this is one of the most crucial, one of the biggest philosophical problems in the contemporary Hindu world today. There are 1 billion, you can say, either Hindus or followers of Sanatana Dharma in the world today. Very sadly, again, even though the book first came out quite some time ago, it did have a big impact. To this day, sadly, many Hindus, both lay individuals, just common individuals, but also including some Hindu leaders, still repeat, again, like broken records, that all religions are the same, all religions are the same, all religions are the same. So this being the case, I felt it was necessary to address this topic again. I did that in the book, but I also do something else. Really, you could say the book has 2 purposes. First, it is indeed to eradicate this false idea of radical universalism. The other purpose of the book, however, is something deeper, and that is to look at that place from whence this false idea originated. And that is a phenomenon that also is no more than 200 years old. Radical universalism and this phenomenon of Neo-Hinduism were both born at the exact same time. Radical universalism is one of the philosophical, if you could call it that, anti-philosophical tenets of Neo-Hinduism. And this being the case, I felt that I had to address both. And this is the reason why. Some people have heard of this term. Most who have, certainly on this channel, have heard it because of me. But it's an academic term. I did not create the term in any way whatsoever. But let me state this in a very direct, very personal sort of way. Individuals who will encounter, again, we can call it either Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma or the Vedic tradition. People who encounter this tradition for the first time and who are still relatively new to it, they will notice a phenomenon that they have stated to me, that I myself have seen. Please keep in mind, I've been on this path for 50 years at this point, and I've seen everything connected to this path. But individuals will notice this interesting dual phenomenon. On the one hand, if they approach Sanatana Dharma in the way it should be approached, i.e., in the orthodox, authentic, traditionalist way in which Sanatana Dharma is understood. That is, in accordance with the Vedic scriptures, in accordance with the actual teachings of the rishis, taught as an actual religion, not just as public property owned by everyone and anyone. That is, when they approach Sanatana Dharma in an authentic way, they hear one thing. They hear one thing. What do they hear? They hear Sanatana Dharma the way it is taught by myself, by Prabhupada, by so many truly authentic Vedic gurus, on the one hand. But then on the other hand, when they inquire a little bit deeper, they will discover some other oddity. And they will discover this in books, YouTube videos all over the place. They will even encounter this when they go to Hindu temples, very sadly. When they speak to Indian Hindus who are in Hindu temples. This other Hinduism will state such things as this. Yes, indeed, all religions are the same. all of the gods and goddesses of Hinduism? Oh yes, they're all the same. Really, they're all the same being. You can just choose and pick whichever one you want. They're all the same. They're all God. You just choose whichever God you want and you end up in the same place. They will hear scientism. They will hear individuals speak about science. The Rig Veda is filled with modern physics and astronomy and genetics, etc., etc., and on and on. I don't want to go into all of the tenets of Neo-Hinduism because I do in the book. But they'll hear something completely different. Again, you follow authentic Sanatana Dharma, you will hear that anyone, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their psychophysical background, anyone can become a follower of Sanatana Dharma if they are sincere and honest. That's authentic Sanatana Dharma. But then you hear this other thing, that caste. It's all caste. Hinduism is caste. You are born a certain way and you are a slave to your genetics, no matter what. That's Neo-Hinduism. And again, I can go on and on and on. People will hear these two different versions of, what is Sanatana Dharma? And people are confused. You know who's confused more than anyone, interestingly? Indian Hindu youth. This is just as an aside. I slightly mentioned this in the book, actually. This is just as an aside. For 50 years, I've had Indian Hindu parents come to me and say, especially now that we're in the West, our children have no interest in our traditions, in our religion, etc., etc. What do we do? What do we do? And my answer to them is always the same. Two things. Number one, you understand what it is perfectly. Throw out this Neo-Hindu garbage because your children are too smart. They understand that what they hear as far as pop Hinduism is all wrong and doesn't make sense philosophically. It falls apart, especially when compared to other ideologies. Number one. Number two, you have to practice. Your children need to see you practice. If your children don't see you practice puja every day, if your children don't see you as a vegetarian, see, I don't care if you're from the Brahmana caste if you're eating meat. You're less than a Shudra if you're eating meat, and your children think so too. They'll respect you. They won't say that to your face, but it's in their mind. So interestingly, what we have seen is because of this dual phenomenon of, on the one hand, authentic Sanatana Dharma, Vedic based upon Shruti and Smriti Sanatana Dharma, versus Neo-Hinduism, which is an ideology that again was born 200 years ago. Everyone is confused. Newcomers to this path are confused. Individuals who were quote-unquote born in this path are confused about, what does our religion actually teach? Well, in Radical Universalism, this book explains with more depth than any other book that has ever been produced in human history what actually is Sanatana Dharma. What is this strange thing that was grafted onto Sanatana Dharma, known as Neo-Hinduism, why they are different, where Neo-Hinduism originated, who are its founders, what did they say? Interestingly, the founders of Neo-Hinduism were not Hindu. Again, I quote their own words in here. Keshup Chandra Sen, individuals like this, were actually Christian missionaries. They were influenced by Christian missionaries. They were influenced by, indeed, the proto-Marxists of the day. This was way before Marx, was even a blip on the world scene. These were individuals who themselves were anti-Hindu. And rather than attacking Hinduism in a forward sort of way, they decided to infiltrate. And these were Christians with an Indian Hindu face. Thus, they perverted Hinduism from within, Sanatana Dharma from within. This book goes into exacting detail. If you're a skeptic about anything I'm saying, read this book. So much detail will be thrown into your face that it will overwhelm you. And you'll have to put the book down at that point. And then at that point, you'll have to make a decision whether you're going to continue lying to yourself pretending the evidence is not there, or whether you will understand what is authentic Sanatana Dharma. So this book is one of the most important books that the ISDS has ever put out. Ever. Because it has a mission. Its mission is to save Sanatana Dharma from those individuals within, supposedly, seemingly within the tradition, who have gone out of their way to pervert the tradition. So that is the goal of this book. It talks about, indeed, this concept, if you could even call it such, that all religions are the same, and philosophically demolishes it like no other book ever has in the history of humanity. But it also talks about what is this phenomenon known as Neo-Hinduism, and in exacting detail its history, the personalities, quotes from them, and completely defeating philosophically Neo-Hinduism and upholding pure and authentic Sanatana Dharma. So, why are we all so excited about this book? This book is a Brahmastra weapon that is designed to restore Sanatana Dharma to our world today. That's what radical universalism is. So, when you have a chance, purchase this book, please. And you will not regret it. Purchase this book. Again, the link is here on the chat. Purchase 2 if you can. 1 for yourself, 1 for a Hindu friend who needs to understand what is pure Sanatana Dharma. So with that, I'm going to be doing some readings from the book. And I'm going to be doing some extensive readings. I want people to get an idea of exactly what the book is like. And of course, this is a mini idea. This is infinitely less than even 1% of the book. First of all, I want to read the acknowledgements to the book itself, because this book was inspired by many people. Again, there were many individuals who, when I say individuals, I'm talking about Hindu leaders who supported especially the first edition of this book when it first came out. The first, 20 pages, 25 pages of this book are nothing but endorsements from some of the top Hindu leaders on the face of the earth, including such individuals as the publisher, the editor-in-chief of Hinduism Today, etc., etc. Again, you'll have to see the book. So first of all, let me just read the acknowledgements as they are within the book. I want to thank the following people for their inspiration, encouragement, and continued personal support for my work over the years. Param Puja Sri Swami Dayananda Saraswati. In fact, let me just comment very quickly on this a little bit. For those individuals who don't know who that person is, he's passed away now, sadly. He's an Advaitin. He was an Advaitin. Not just an Advaitin, an ultra real Orthodox Advaitin, not a non-dualist little American guy kind of doing so-called satsangs at New Age centers. No, this person was a Swami who was a serious follower of Shankaracharya. He invited me actually to his ashrama twice. He was very, very well known. He invited me to his ashrama twice, where I gave talks in the very early 2000s. And even though he was an Advaitin, and I am a Vishishta Advaitin, he was extremely supportive of all of my work and everything. Again, he's passed away now, and but he was truly the real thing. He was a true guru in the Advaita lineage, which again, we have our philosophical disagreements with. But one thing I must say is that, again, he was a very orthodox individual and wonderful person. His Holiness Sri Bodhinatha Velan Swami, that is the current editor-in-chief of Hinduism Today magazine, the largest Hindu magazine upon the face of the earth. He also wrote an endorsement in here. Dr. David Frawley, who has been a supporter of mine for over 25 years, close to 30 years, and on top of that, he also wrote the actual foreword to this book. You probably can't see it from this far away, but if you look at the cover, it says Forward by Dr. David Frawley. He was gracious enough to not only support the book, he wrote the forward to it. So if you like the writings of Vamadeva Shastri, Dr. David Frawley, he wrote the forward. Dr. Subhash Kak, who is an eminent professor who himself has written something like 30 books on Hinduism. Stephen Knapp, Sri Nandanandana Prabhu, who is a wonderful disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who again also has written I don't know how many books, 20, 25, 30 books at this point. He also endorses this book within the book. His Holiness Mahamandaleshwara Swarupananda Swami. This is an American Swami, actually, who lives in California, who again has been a wonderful supporter of mine for many years. Shripad B.V. Avadhuta Maharaja. Avadhuta Maharaja is a sannyasi of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and he also endorses the book within the book. Tulasi Devi, and I'll speak more about her in a moment. Now I'll go kind of quickly through the names. Mr. A.J. Hogue, Professor Keith Yandel, Professor David M. Knipe, Vishal Agarwal, and Professor Ramesh Rao. Special thanks indeed to Tulasi Devi Mandaleshwari, who is here, for her creative expertise in designing the cover for this book. She created the cover, and she created the cover of the original book that came out in 2007, as well as this one. And again, as you can see, it is a truly beautiful cover in every way. Tulasi Devi is here. Thank you for creating a beautiful cover and a lot of other work that you did to get this book out. In addition, just a lot of important work. I want to thank Mark Koenig, Tim Heibach, Krishna Prasada, and Savitri Devi for your expert proofreading. Indeed, we did a lot of proofreading on this book. Savitri herself went through it twice, actually, and found all sorts of little errors here and there. Any writer will tell you that you can write a book, you need someone else to proofread it. You're not going to see your own mistakes. So I had several people help to expertly proofread this book, and they knew what they were doing. As well, I want to thank Hayagriva for heading up the ISDS book publishing team. Hayagriva is someone who is wonderful. I won't give away his name, but he is actually here right now, hopefully listening. I see his name here in the chat. And Hayagriva has helped us in so many different ways, and I want to thank Hayagriva also for helping us. Very good. With that, I'm going to go on now, and I'm going to read a little bit, just 2 short paragraphs from the introduction to Radical Universalism. The anti-Vedic craze of Radical Universalism began to influence traditional Sanatana Dharma roughly 200 years ago, as a direct result of liberal Christian missionary and Euro-American globalist ideological incursions into India. Since then, it has morphed to become one of the most perniciously parroted dogmas in modern-day Hinduism, to the point where today, many people throughout the world, not the least of whom seem to be the majority of the Hindu population, falsely believe the dogma of Radical Universalism to be a central pillar of Sanatana Dharma itself, which again it is not. While a handful of responsible and honest gurus and Hindu intellectuals have made courageous attempts to negate this anti-Vedic fallacy over the last 2 centuries, few have succeeded in formulating a concerted and systematic philosophical response. This work presently represents the first such successful philosophical critique and refutation of Radical Universalism in the history of Sanatana Dharma. And that's from page 2. Now it goes on in the introduction. My goal in presenting Radical Universalism in book form is precisely to help the Vedic world in its present attempt to reconstruct itself in terms of its ancient and time-honored form. If we are to call ourselves either Vedic or followers of Sanatana Dharma, and if we are going to express our heartfelt concern that our beautiful and noble tradition successfully rebuild itself to become a future force for global renaissance, then we need to understand the true nature of this dignified and life-sustaining spiritual worldview in a manner that honors it in an unadulterated and pristine manner. We need to understand the tradition of Sanatana Dharma on its own terms and on its terms alone, and not under the terms of its detractors and enemies. Very good. So that's just from the introduction. Now I'll be going into the body of the work itself, and this is from chapter 1. This is from pages 13 and 15 of Radical Universalism. The doctrine that I have come to call Radical Universalism makes the claim that, quote, all religions are the same, unquote. This dogmatic assertion is of very recent origin and has become one of the most harmful misconceptions in the Vedic world in the last 200 years or so. It is a doctrine that has directly led to a self-defeating philosophical theological relativism that has in turn weakened the stature and dignity of Sanatana Dharma to its very core. The doctrine of Radical Universalism has made Vedic philosophy look infantile in the eyes of non-dharmis, has led to a collective state of self-revulsion, confusion, and shame in the minds of too many Hindu youth, and has opened the Hindu community to be preyed upon by much more easily by the zealous missionaries of other religions, especially the Abrahamic religions. The problem of Radical Universalism is arguably the most important philosophical issue facing the Vedic global community today. More so than any anti-Vedic incursion threatening Sanatana Dharma from without, Radical Universalism has been responsible for subverting Sanatana Dharma from within. In the following book, we will perform an in-depth examination of the intrinsic fallacies contained in this inherently anti-Vedic idea, as well as the untold damage that Radical Universalism has wrought in Sanatana Dharma, and especially in the more recent offshoot of Sanatana Dharma known as Neo-Hinduism. Very good. We'll continue with the readings. Now we're going to be going to chapter 3. Let me tell you, there are 19 chapters in the book. So again, when I say the book has been tremendously, enormously expanded since it first came out, oh yes, it's 290 pages, 19 chapters in total. But the following is from chapter 3. Like every other religion in the world and throughout history, Sanatana Dharma is a distinct and unique tradition, with its own inbuilt and non-replicable beliefs, worldview, traditions, rituals, concepts of the absolute, metaphysics, ethics, aesthetics, cosmology, cosmogony, and theology. The grand systematic philosophical construct that we call Sanatana Dharma is the result of the extraordinary revelatory gifts of the great rishis, yogis, and acharyas and gurus attested to throughout the history of our religion, guided by the transcendent light of the Vedic revelation, which have stood the test of time. It is a tradition that is worthy of healthy celebration by dharmis and of deeply respectful admiration by non-dharmis. We have in Sanatana Dharma the preeminent spiritual tradition on earth that should fill us with a healthy yet humble sense of pride. Very good. Followers of Sanatana Dharma have no more reason to be uncomfortable with the singular uniqueness of our own spiritual tradition, and even less of a reason to not boldly assert our own exceptional contributions to the development of global religious thought than do the followers of any other venerable faith. Indeed, given the fact that Sanatana Dharma is the very first, the most ancient, the most comprehensively reasonable, and most philosophically incomparable of all religions on earth, we have even more reason to deeply revere our religious tradition. So this is from the 3rd chapter. This is the spirit in which this book has been written. Let's go on now to chapter 5. And we have a brief reading here from chapter 5 of Radical Universalism. Are all religions the same? The highest truths of Vedic knowledge are not revealed by prophets, as in the Abrahamic tradition, nor is truth revealed by the speculative or experimental methods of materialistic science. Rather, truth is revealed in the Vedic tradition via those perfected beings who have directly experienced truth firsthand, on the very plane of transcendence itself, via meditation and the spiritual purification of their very beings by sadhana, systematic spiritual practice. These epistemological principles are only a few of the many elements that make Sanatana Dharma unique and unlike any other religion or spiritual path that exists in this world. Very good. Now we go on to chapter 6. And I don't have readings from every single chapter. I skipped quite a few chapters because otherwise we'd be here for a very long time. Again, it's not a small book. It's 290 pages. But next is from chapter 6. All pre-modern sages, acharyas, and philosophers recognized and celebrated the singularly unique vision that Sanatana Dharma had to offer the world. Clearly distinguished between Vedic and non-Vedic religions, and defended the distinctiveness and exceptionality of Sanatana Dharma to the utmost of their formidable intellectual and spiritual abilities. They did so unapologetically, professionally, and courageously, as our great Dharma Rakshakas, or defenders of Dharma. None of our ancient and authentic rishis, gurus, and acharyas viewed Sanatana Dharma to be in any way the same, equal to, or interchangeable with any other non-Vedic religion. None of them considered all religions to be the same. None of them. The Vedic worldview only makes sense, has value, and has a hope of surviving into the future if and only if we all similarly celebrate its irreplaceable uniqueness today. Very good. Next, we're going to read from chapter 7. One of the phenomena that occurred during this historical period, and that is the early 19th century I'm talking about in this chapter. So one of the phenomena that occurred during this historical period was the fabrication of a new movement now known as Neo-Hinduism. Neo-Hinduism was an artificial religious construct used as a paradigmatic juxtaposition to the legitimate and traditional Sanatana Dharma that had been the religion and culture of the people for thousands of years previously. Neo-Hinduism was used as an effective weapon to replace authentic Sanatana Dharma with a British-invented and encouraged imitation of Vedic religion, now rechristened quote-unquote Hinduism, which is a term that the British created, Hinduism. The real name of our religion is Sanatana Dharma. Neo-Hinduism was in actuality the newly triumphant worldview of Abrahamist Masonic modernity with an Indian face. This new religious movement was designed to make a subjugated people easier to manage and control. The new phenomenon of Neo-Hinduism was radically distinct from the traditional and authentic religion of Sanatana Dharma that had preceded it. Rather, it was something brand new and designedly subversive. Neo-Hinduism was a wholly different and concocted Trojan horse manufactured by India's new colonial overlords to destroy the remnants of Vedic civilization from within. In the historically unprecedented interface between Vedic civilization and the newly emerged project of globalist modernity that occurred in the very early 19th century, authentic Sanatana Dharma looked at the worldview of modernity, critiqued it, and then rejected it. Neo-Hinduism, on the other hand, unthinkingly and unashamedly capitulated to modernity. It gave in. Neo-Hinduism represents the full-blown surrender of modernist-trained 19th century Hindu intellectuals to Abrahamist Masonic modernity. Very good. Now we'll go on to chapter 8. The sacred scriptures of Sanatana Dharma are termed Shastra in the perfected Sanskrit language. Shastra is a strict technical term that refers exclusively to that specific sacred revelatory scripture known as the Veda. The position of Sanatana Dharma is that we can know the highest of truths via the Vedic scriptures alone, which is the eternal, nitya, non-man-made, apurusheya, and unalterable truth in literary form. Any other literature that is not recognized as being of the nature of Shastra, i.e. Vedic, is not accepted by Sanatana Dharma as having any legitimacy whatsoever. Thus the Bible, the Quran, the Tripitaka, the Guru Granth Sahib, the Book of Mormon, or any other non-Vedic literary work is not accepted as a legitimate scriptural work in the tradition of Sanatana Dharma. This is another of the claims of Neo-Hinduism. They would place the Old and New Testament, the Quran, and every other scripture on the face of the earth as having equal weight to the Vedic scripture. This is what Neo-Hindus say. Thus, they are anti-Vedic. Because no rishi, acharya, guru, or sage previous to 200 years ago would ever say that. Indeed, if they did, they would no longer be considered Vedic. They would be removed from the Vedic community over 200 years ago. Now, every so-called Hindu thinks that this is the truth. It is not. Very good. Now, this goes on just a little bit more in chapter 8. Followers of Neo-Hinduism, on the other hand, make the uneducated claim that any so-called scripture of any religion and of all religions in the world is to be accepted equally as Shastra. They equate all other religious writings, even if such a work is no more than 200 years old, and regardless of the actual theological, philosophical contents of that work, as being of equal value in every way to the Vedic scriptures. Indeed, this is what Neo-Hindus say. In making this short-sighted and immensely anti-Vedic assertion, Neo-Hindus have rendered themselves at odds with the emphatic statements of the Vedic scriptures themselves, and have thus implicitly rejected the Vedic religion itself. Very good. All right. Now, this is another reading from chapter 8. And let me tell you, chapter 8 is the longest chapter in this book, in Radical Universalism. The reason why it's the longest chapter is because it is in this chapter, chapter 8 specifically, that I look at the primary tenets, that is, the primary beliefs of this 200-year-old phenomenon known as Neo-Hinduism. I tell you point by point. I believe I stop at approximately 13. I could have gone on. But I look at the most important beliefs of Neo-Hinduism. I tell you what they are, and then I absolutely demolish and eradicate them by quoting the Vedic scriptures and actual gurus and acharyas. But it's a long chapter, chapter 8. So this also is from chapter 8. Sanatana Dharma contains within it some of the most advanced scientific knowledge available to mankind, real science, but we'll go on, including in such fields as astronomy, biology, medicine, mathematics, physics, mechanics, engineering, genetics, epigenetics, etc. Vedic science, however, has next to nothing akin with the materialistic sciences of modernity. Modern scientific concerns, worldviews, or theoretical constructs did not exist in the Vedic scriptures. Did not exist in the Vedic scriptures. If only because modern science is too primitive in comparison to Vedic science. Unlike the atheistically inspired materialistic sciences of modernity, the Vedic fields of science are dedicated to revealing science in a manner that is not at odds with or antithetical to nature, but that reflects nature perfectly. Vedic sciences work in harmony with natural cycles, forces, processes, axioms, ingredients, and ethical principles in order to ensure that the resultant effects of all scientific endeavors are a boon to mankind rather than a curse, which is what science is today, for the most part, is a curse more than a boon. Scientism, on the other hand, views itself as being in a war to the death with the natural. Very good. Nice. This is obviously a section in the book where I do a comparative analysis of A, science in modernity versus B, Vedic science versus C, this monstrosity in the middle, Neo-Hindus who think that modern science is found in the ancient Vedic scriptures. So let me go on. This is yet again another passage from chapter 8, where now we're talking about evolution. I have a long section here where I talk about, and this is the first time I've done this in writing. It's a very long section, again, in chapter 8. I forget how many pages chapter 8 is. It might be like 35, 40 pages, where I talk about the Darwinian concept of qualitative evolution versus natural selection. And I talk about what is, once and for all, definitively the Vedic view on quote-unquote evolution. So this is just one little passage from that. Again, it's actually many paragraphs, and this is one. Where Sanatana Dharma differs with the Darwinian theory of evolution is that, while Vedic scholars understand that natural selection leads to an alteration in proceeding generations of any given species, qualitative evolutionism takes an empirically unsupported leap outside the bounds of actual science by claiming that such natural selection leads not merely to alteration, but to necessarily qualitative evolutionary changes, i.e. superior changes. According to qualitative evolutionism, every genetic alteration is necessarily a qualitatively superior alteration. Sanatana Dharma readily acknowledges intergenerational genetic alterations, but qualitative evolutionism additionally states, and on no other evidence than polemically fueled blind faith, that such genetic alterations are necessarily better and more superior with every proceeding generation. Of this belief on the part of the qualitative evolutionist, there is zero proof or evidence. And again, to get the full context of what I'm saying here, you need to read the book, because this is a very large section where, again, I speak about evolution from the Vedic perspective, which aspects we do accept and which aspects we absolutely reject. All right, that being said, again, one more passage from chapter 8. The contemporary Vedic community will continue to be mired in confusion about its own true meaning and value until all the many poisons of Neo-Hinduism can be finally eradicated from its midst. In order to accomplish this restoration of authentic Sanatana Dharma, Vedic traditionalists must assertively, professionally, and intelligently communicate the reality of genuine Sanatana Dharma to the world. We thus call upon all sincere followers of authentic and orthodox Sanatana Dharma to fully support the efforts of the International Sanatana Dharma Society in its mission to restore the authentic Vedic tradition throughout every corner of the world. Until this is accomplished, Neo-Hinduism will continue its destructive campaign of presenting itself as an actual representative of the Vedic religion, which it is not, while simultaneously subverting the very Vedic religion itself that it falsely claims to represent. Very good. With that, we're going to go on to chapter 9 now. This is now from chapter 9. This is page 143 of Radical Universalism. We must celebrate traditional Sanatana Dharma, and we must do so on its own terms alone. The Neo-Hindu importation of Radical Universalism may resonate with many people on a purely emotional level, but it remains patently anti-Vedic in its origins. Radical Universalism is an indefensible proposition philosophically, and a highly destructive doctrine to the further enfoldment of Sanatana Dharma. The dogma of Radical Universalism has not attracted more people to the Vedic tradition, as many of its early originators had hoped. Rather, it has kept intelligent people away from the Vedic religion and philosophy. People are smart. When they hear beliefs, when they hear tenets, when they hear slogans that sound stupid, that then is a reflection on the religion. And intelligent people will therefore see that religion in a bad light. This idea that all religions are the same is stupid. And intelligent people see it immediately. Those emotionally driven New Age modern effetes of urban areas will love it. But intelligent people do not. Very good. Now we're going on to chapter 10, page 146 of Radical Universalism. Radical Universalism defies disjunctive logic in its very claim that the many either-or propositions contained in the varied, mutually exclusive theological statements of a multiplicity of different religions are without meaning. For example, the mutually exclusive claims that the inherent nature of the Absolute is either ontological nothingness, as is said in Buddhism, or ontological personal being, possessed of an infinite number of auspicious attributes, that is the Parabrahman of Sanatana Dharma. Logic insists that the Absolute must be one or the other, and cannot simultaneously be both of these contradictory claims. To defy disjunctive logic is akin to claiming that one is a married bachelor or that one is in possession of a square circle. These are either-or propositional statements that inherently cannot be reconciled. Now we get into deep philosophy. It's especially with the latter half of the book that we start to do philosophy. Everything else before that is very important, but it's set up. It's talking about the history of both Sanatana Dharma and Neo-Hinduism. It's talking about the history of this concept, this, if you can call it a concept, this statement of Radical Universalism. But it's especially in the second half of this book that we deconstruct this false proposition, this propositional statement, all religions are the same. We philosophically deconstruct it to the point where it can never, ever be constructed again. Now we go on to, let me check the time very quickly. Due to time, and I do have quite a few readings here, I'm going to skip a little bit of this with everyone's kind permission. And I'm going to go to the last chapter, which is chapter 19. And this is chapter 19, pages 233 to 234. And this is what I write in that chapter. Each and every time a dharmi upholds radical universalism and bombastically proclaims that all religions are the same, he does so at the dire expense of the very Sanatana Dharma that he claims to love. To deny the uniqueness and greatness of Sanatana Dharma as the very fountainhead of all religion leads, in turn, to a very unhealthy psychological state of self-loathing, a sense of unworthiness, and a schizophrenic confusion on the part of anyone who wishes to consider themselves a follower of Sanatana Dharma. See, what does it mean that every person on earth is saying, oh, my religion is wonderful, I appreciate my religion, but the follower of Sanatana Dharma, really the Neo-Hindu, is saying the opposite, and he's the only person saying the opposite. Every other religion is wonderful. My religion, Psychologically, what does this do to an individual? Think about it. Now we understand why the Hindu world, as indeed every Hindu leader today will state, the Hindu world has become an ocean of passivity. This is the reason why. If you don't even have the ability to appreciate your own religion of Sanatana Dharma, trust me, no one else is. Very good. Let's go on just a little bit more. Radical universalism leads directly to psychological debilitation, intellectual lethargy, and religious confusion on the part of innocent followers of Sanatana Dharma. This is especially the case for Vedic youth, Hindu youth. The negative effects of this debilitating inferiority complex, coupled with the lack of philosophical clarification that result from the denigrating influence of radical universalism, are the principal reasons why Vedic parents find their children all too often lacking a deep interest in Sanatana Dharma, and in some cases even abandoning Sanatana Dharma for seemingly more rational and less self-abnegating religions. Who, after all, wants to follow a religion in which it is claimed that the very basis of the religion is to exalt the greatness of other religions at its own expense? The answer is absolutely no one. Absolutely no one. This is why, shall I be blunt? This is indeed why today Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, is one of the least respected religions upon the face of the earth. Is that if individuals within Sanatana Dharma themselves can't even have the pride of saying, my religion is unique, my religion is unlike any other religion on the face of the earth. We have our own intrinsically inherent, differentiated, and again, unique beliefs, culture, ways of being, etc., etc. Unless an individual can say this, then how is anyone outside of the religion to take that religion seriously? So, also, what this book, Radical Universalism, is calling for is a new assertive sense of pride in Sanatana Dharma. This book is written for everyone. This book is written for the Indian Hindu community who, again, need to revive this sense of pride and no longer say, all religions are the same, my religion is just like anyone else. No. Take pride in Sanatana Dharma and the fact that it is unlike any other religion on the face of the earth. Indeed, it is the very fountainhead of religion itself. Know that and have pride in that. And then for individuals who are not Indian Hindus, for individuals like myself, several of the people here who are in our temple, who are still relatively new to this religion, but who found themselves attracted to the traditional aspect of this religion, they need to read this book too, to gauge themselves and see how many beliefs they themselves to this day may retain, thinking that, oh yes, this is what Sanatana Dharma teaches, only to discover after reading this book that actually, no, your idea is 200 years old and didn't exist previous to this. We need to test ourselves and see if we are followers of Sanatana Dharma. Are the beliefs that I am currently holding, are they actually Vedic? Or did they come about due to some truly Western and Christian-inspired Hindu intellectual who lived 150 years ago and just kind of concocted this? But now, throughout the entirety of so-called Hinduism today, people think that this is what Sanatana Dharma actually teaches. We need to know what our religion actually teaches and what it does not teach, if we are to be strong and effective followers of Sanatana Dharma, the eternal natural way. So with that, again, the moment that this live stream is over, run to Amazon as quickly as your digital little legs can take you. Run to Amazon, get this book immediately. I guarantee if you have any sincere interest in Sanatana Dharma, if you have been on this path even for 50 years, having read this book, you may discover that some things that you thought were central to Sanatana Dharma were actually made up and are actually quite modern. And then vice versa. So please buy this book, buy this book, buy this book. When you do buy the book, and after you've read it, if you have enjoyed it, please leave a positive review on Amazon. That helps tremendously. And again, I'm going to end it just by saying to people once again to please consider giving a donation to the International Sanatana Dharma Society. Now you see, we're not joking when we say that the International Sanatana Dharma Society is literally the tip of the spear. We are the cutting edge. We're not on it. We are the cutting edge in restoring pure, authentic, orthodox, radically traditionalist Sanatana Dharma in the world today. This is why this book and all of the other books that we have been written in the way that they have been, and that is to present Sanatana Dharma purely. So please help us. Please donate today. Again, go to the link that is here in the chat. The link will also be in the comments section once this is available as a video. Buy the book, donate, do everything that you can to help the International Sanatana Dharma Society. We have a Discord server, and every week I mention this. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sincere, honest individuals, devotees, Vaishnavas, who are on our Discord server, who are there to help you. There is discussion that takes place 24/7 on our Discord server, where if you are sincere, if you are honest, you can ask questions. And many of our leading devotees are there to happily answer your questions, and not just that, actually, not just philosophically, to help guide you in your life as well. Let me talk about this just for a moment. I know we're over, and I warned people this would be a little bit over an hour today. The Discord server is not just a place for philosophical discussion. It is also a place to help people very practically in their lives, and interestingly, both spiritually and materially. That is, you want to deepen your experience of God, but you have some stumbling block of some sort. Go to our Discord server, ask about it. You'll see our devotees come out of the woodwork to help you, to encourage you, to inspire you, to give you practical advice. You find yourself depressed right now, feeling without hope because, 2023, December of 2023, we know how crazy the world is. Trust me, we in the ISDS know better than anyone the problems that people are facing today. You need personal help. Go to our Discord server, and people are there to encourage you in every way. So join our Discord server. Go to dharmacentral.com when you can. Become a member of the ISDS. The International Sanatana Dharma Society is a religious movement. We have members. We have many members, actually, in 70 nations now throughout the world. become a monthly tithing member of the ISDS. And in that way, you will not only help us with your donations, but you will feel firmly connected to the ISDS as a member. And again, finally, to repeat, if you can, please donate whatever you can by following the link in the chat and donating to the ISDS. Our fundraising campaign is going to be ending December 31st at midnight. Don't wait till then. Don't wait till 1 minute before then. Right now, if you can, please go and donate. We need your donations for many things. In fact, on the donation page, we have a list of all the things that we need donations for in the immediate. Let me just mention a few of them. One of which is we have our building, and it's a beautiful building. It's a large building, actually. And we are approximately $12,000 away from paying off the mortgage on this building. We've paid off the vast majority of the money on this building. Another $12,000 and we will be free of debt for this building, and the ISDS will fully own our temple. In fact, I've told many people at this point, the first $12,000 that we make with this fundraising campaign is going directly to that. We also have renovations that we still need to do on this building. Indeed, half of downstairs of the basement still has to be done. We want to create rooms down there. We need new bookcases for our library. We have a library of approximately 3,000 books. And the bookcases are very old at this point. In some cases, some of the bookcases are 20 years old, and they don't even quite match. Some are white, some are tannish color, etc. Well, these books, the library of our temple is something that is sacred to us. We do many things down there. Many of our devotees will go there, read, look at the books, go through the books. We also have meetings down there, etc. We want new bookcases. We're going to need, I'm guesstimating, about 14 bookcases, large bookcases, to rehouse our sacred library down there. And we have a vast library. We have a vast Vedic library of many, many scriptures, many writings by different gurus, etc., acharyas from the past. But we also have books on everything: general philosophy, history, religion, psychology, etc., etc., etc. We need to buy new bookcases. We'll need about 14. That's going to cost a lot of money. And then we have many, many other projects that we're working on. And that's what we will do with every penny that you give us. Whether you give us $5, $5,000, $5 million, trust me, I've told people in the past, if someone donated $1 billion to the ISDS today, I already know how we would allocate every single penny. And we would use that money with such laser precision that would bring the ISDS not only to the next level, but 10 levels above. So indeed, we use our money very, very wisely and for nothing extravagant. So please donate if you can. With that, we're going to end here. I thank you for being here for this book celebration, for the release of Radical Universalism. Are all religions the same? Now you know the answer is no. All religions are not the same. Buy the book. And with that, I thank you all for being here. Namaste. And everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharmarashtra Jayate.
Dharmarashtra Jayate.
Suryavansha Jayate.
Suryavansha Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
Evam Bhavatu. May the victory of Dharma be so. and so it shall be. With that, everyone, between now and the next time that we get together, I ask you all in every way that you please take very good care of yourselves.